10 hours of Abby? 10?
Mel's pregnant.
Wait, what? Is that real? No joke, 10 hours with this character. Yes, it's real. Yes. You're gonna play the next 10 hour.
일단 개같은 개연 스토리와 연출의 지문과 평점이 높다는 게 진짜 이해가 안 간다. 병신겜.
Guys, get this. It's gonna be so edgy. We'll have two girls having sex and smoking weed, and then right after, let's kill Joel. Ship it. Let's go, boys. Like, it's insane.
How's the pie?
So good.
I finally get this game. I finally understand The Last of Us Part 2, where nobody's dreams come true because everybody's either fucking dead or living a miserable life. Obviously, that's not what I got out of the game, but there are a lot of freaking dead people, and I'm not including the undead dead people. I'm gonna get this point out of the way first, though. I actually really enjoyed the game, and yes, I'm aware that I'm 5 years late to make this statement, and yes, that also might not make me a true gamer, and yes, I also really like the movie The Little Giants, but we're not here for any of that. To be honest, I'm actually happy it took me this long to actually finish the game. Spoilers beware, by the way. I will get into more spoilers in the story section of the video, but there are going to be spoilers throughout. Please do yourself a favor, hop out this video if you don't want to be spoiled. You've been warned. I restarted this game about 2 to 3 times, finally made the attempt to get everything going. One thing I'll say right off the bat is the first couple of hours setting up the town of Jackson, doing your patrols, reestablishing our characters, and getting familiar with the new ones was kind of a drag, mostly because I'm a big baby with no attention span and I want things to go boom. But honestly, ever since I started working full-time, it just got harder for me to get into games, and especially ones that have longer drawn-out intros like The Last of Us Part 2. But once everything gets into place, this game really draws you in. The game is anxiety-inducing. Stealth elements and limited supplies force you to play and improvise new ways to defeat enemies and get through areas. It is much the same. Oh, hi, Mustard. Come here, buddy.
No.
Anyway, it is very much the same as the first game, but expanded with different types of enemies, smarter AI, and environments that lend itself very well to its playstyle. Even in the slower moments where the game wants to flex and show you why Naughty Dog is a goated studio, they keep you engaged with lore about the world and just really, really good dialogue. And I'm really not a big person for these slower, drawn-out sequences, as I kind of got into earlier. And it is a big reason why I kind of poo-poo on JRPGs so much. But there's just something about the writing in this game that makes me really interested, and even the seemingly unimportant things about random notes from families that lived in these decrepit spaces you are traversing through. And I know that I'm making a lot of points that could be said about the first game and Trust. I'm going to get into that controversial story. But I guess the reason why I'm digging into a lot of this information is because I think it's really hard to make all of these seemingly unimportant parts of the games feel important. And Naughty Dog really knocked it out of the park, not only obviously with this game, but its predecessor. Everything is deliberate, and I think its attention to detail is one of the things about The Last of Us that really makes it stand out. Speaking of attention to detail, the visuals are... Look at this. Look at this too. Hold on, look at that. Bro, come on. Look at this shit. This game looks so damn good. I played the PS4 version of the game on my PS5 and it still really holds up well. Every section has a life of its own. The design of the terrain, foliage, houses, camps, you name it. It's all beautiful. I can't even begin to imagine the work that went into just making the game look as good as it is. They definitely wanted to show off two specific parts of this game, which was the foliage and the water. Shoot, they should have just called this game Last of Us Part 2 Wet Edition. There was so much damn water in this game. And I mean, I'm not really complaining too much about it, but it is a little, it's kind of funny to me. It did make for a lot of interesting gaming sequences, though, and I also know that water is part of the theme of this game, of the story, which I'll get into later. Foliage in many areas, like I said earlier, also ended up looking really good too, and it was intertwined with the stealth part of the gameplay, and I'm surprised how much I ended up actually using it to my advantage. I can also admit it was a really good way to introduce more variety into the gameplay. And the sound in this game is fantastic. I mean, hearing the snarls and the abnormally moist groans of the zombies and the clicking noises from the clickers are always unsettling. Same with the sounds of the environments like glass, wood, metal, all the other materials. Sounds like it's in your ear. It sounds really, really good. Some of the enemies also kind of trash talking or like telling each other where you're at, or calling you names, or screaming that their friend got killed, or basically calling you a bitch because they hate your fucking guts. I think that the way that they set up the space for where you can hear these characters. I played this game a lot with headphones on, and it sounds really, really good. The sound of the score as well, when the game becomes more relaxed, kind of trying to show you, the rest of the world where Naughty Dog is flexing its visuals. The score kind of like comes in and really complements the visuals and the beautiful world that you're living in. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the aspects of this game is really deliberate, and the sound and visuals both reflect that. Even in the little details, like when you're upgrading your weapons, the sound of your tools going against the gear sounds really accurate. Even though I kind of hated that section as well, because I'm a goofy goober and I just want to go. But I did appreciate still the little things. The story is really about a lot of things. This is where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of everything. And I have two opinions or two frames of thought when thinking about this game. One of which is what a lot of people felt when the game was originally released, and how, when you're building a story and kind of like making these characters, and Joel was such an impactful character, and killing them off, especially so early in the game, can be very controversial. Also playing as Abby after the fact, and kind of trying to make you care about a character that killed the character that you really like so much, is definitely a very interesting move. But in many ways, I also think it was pretty effective, and it's actually one of the reasons why I mentioned earlier that I was glad that I played the game as late as I did. And it was so that I can get kind of past all the noise. And so, my God. One of the reasons why I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of glad I was able to finish this story 5 years after it came out was I was able to get past the noise that plagued this game when it launched. And I probably would have sided with a lot of the people who had issues with the game. Those elements of controversy are still very prevalent. I mean, I still felt a lot of the things that a lot of people felt at the time, but it didn't really cloud my judgment entirely, right? Playing as Abby and developing that story over time really did get me to kind of appreciate it a little bit more. And I really do think this game would have been controversial no matter what, or even if Joel had survived, because if it was going to effectively portray the world these people were living in, I do think something controversial was going to happen, right? We have to remember what this story is about. We have to remember the world these characters are living in, and it's an awful place filled with awful people, including the ones that you're playing as. I mean, shoot, Ellie killed a freaking pregnant woman, you know. And I think if I were to boil it down to the meat, and if I had to boil the story down to a specific, you know, overarching idea, is being human is very complicated, and nobody's going to really know how they react when things go to shit. I mentioned earlier water being a main theme of the game, being that so present in the majority of the story. Treading through waters, using boats, swimming through many sections of Seattle. The friggin' aquarium being a main part of Abby's storyline. And also the place where, you know, two of her closest friends were murdered. You know, obviously the ending scene where Abby and Ellie fight in the shores of San Diego. Water really doesn't just serve as a tool for gameplay, but it also symbolizes the relentlessness of Ellie's revenge, and also it's used to symbolize the sins that are absolved with Abby's storyline, the sins of her past and Joel's murder. And it really does play well into other aspects, like the cycle of violence that seems to be the main idea that Neil Druckmann is trying to get across with both The Last of Us 1 and 2. And I really, you know, reflect on the fact that, you know, the two main characters that are in this game are two characters that were born into this world. All of the older characters, the people that we get to know in the first game, they know what it was like before the virus was released. But these two women, they really don't know. And in fact, many of the characters you play as, this is all they know. All they know is violence and survival. You know, and in our world, right, where we live in relative quote unquote peace, we're immune to the actual reactions of violence that affect each other. This game puts you in the front seat of what it actually means to have terrible traumatic experience and terrible traumatic act of violence. This game really puts you in the front seat of what the actual this game puts you in the front seat of what actual violence can mean to others, and it forces you to do heinous acts. I'm gonna say that part again. I'm gonna delete that. The game really puts you in the front seat of what violence can do to other people, and it even forces you to do heinous acts that leaves me as the player reluctant to do. You know, the first game kind of does this whole sequence at the end of the game where you're saving Ellie from the doctors, and it's pretty, you know, it's noble in a sense, but when you really think about it, it's pretty awful, you know, what you're doing. And I think you do this and then some in this game, right? I mentioned Ellie killing the pregnant woman, but also a lot of the different acts of murder that you have to end up doing. Obviously, playing as Abby, you get to get close to all of the characters that you want to hate in the first part of the game. And I think narratively that really does a good job of like kind of giving you the perspective of like, okay, you can understand why these actions are being made, but you can also understand the other side. And what do you do with these feelings when they all come into place? And it really just shows you that every decision has a snowball effect, and you really won't know how you would react to that. I mean, the whole Wolves and Scar subplot is exactly what happens when the cycle of violence has no release. You know, the war and the death of hundreds or even thousands are the amalgamation of two groups of people that are looking for peace, but they find each other at odds because of the poor choices of the few that don't want to hold peace in the same regard as people looking for peace. And again, I can really go on about the story. I mean, there's a bunch of think pieces about it. But one thing I won't really agree with, in the critique of this game, is that the story is quote unquote boiled down to revenge is bad or war is bad. And I think more so that the game's message is more so that revenge, anger, love, lust are really complicated human emotions that affect the decisions that we make and affect the drive that make those decisions feel complicated or feel as if they are necessary or feel as if they're unnecessary. Both Ellie and Abby have very similar drives, kind of different directions of which lead them to each other. But they both experience a very similar pain, you know? And like specifically with Ellie, her drive is very similar to Abby, but it goes a little bit further than that. She feels guilty, right? She feels guilty for her inability to process what Joel had done for her in saving her from the Fireflies. She also feels that guilty in the sense that his death is her fault, and she really didn't have a say in it, right? To me, all of this really just felt like a very real portrayal of human emotions in these extreme scenarios. And it's not just limited to these characters. Tommy, Isaac, Yara, Manny, Lev, even Yara and Lev's mom, they have all very realistic motivations and things that they do and enact on that can be very reflective to things that you or I can do, you know? I can really go on and on about this story, but I'll leave it at the ending where Ellie was going to kill Abby. And I think in many ways, the reason she didn't isn't because she didn't want to, quote unquote, stoop to her level. I think it was more so her realizing that even with Abby's death right at her 8 fingertips, she couldn't shake the grief and pain that Joel's death left behind. She really knew that deep down she had to accept his death and what it was. And I think she knew that the moment that she took Abby and Lev off of that stump. And even if she killed Abby, she knew that it wouldn't have made that feeling go away. And she had to accept his death. Now, this game really does still have its faults. I don't love playing as Abby, or the first couple of hours. I mentioned that earlier. I didn't love that. I was pissed off, but I did grow to appreciate it. There were too many flashbacks for my liking, in my opinion. I think there was a little bit of bloat that we could have gotten rid of, but at that point I'm being a little nitpicky. And this isn't a negative, but playing through Abby's section, I was like, damn, bitch, this bitch's life sucks. her life is terrible. Maybe she's reaping what she sowed. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, overall, I obviously had a good time and obviously had a lot to say about it. I'm kind of even more upset that they handled the second season of the show the way that they did, because it was really ripe for proper TV adaptation. But all in all, I give this game a good 8.5 peepays out of 10. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you like videos like this, I have a bunch other on my page, so go check them out. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.